What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, we're here to talk about Gears of War 3, finishing that trilogy. We still got a couple more games to go, and I intend to play them, and I intend to cover them on this channel, but we finally did it. We're only 13 years too late to it. First came out September of 2011, and I actually got some, it's 13 years later, but some controversial thoughts on this game. I think it's a good game. In terms of the trilogy as a whole, I actually think this might be one of the weaker ones. I really like 2. You can go back. We did a video on Gears of War 1, on Gears of War 2. I feel like this game is not as good as Gears of War 2, and I feel like even when people were commenting on some of these videos, it was split. There were people that were telling me when I played the first game, oh, you're really going to like 2. Oh, 3 is my personal favorite. Oh, 2 is my favorite. 2, I would say, as of right now, is the best in the trilogy. Hands down. Hands down. There's a bit more backstory here. There's 2 pretty emotional scenes that I don't really know if it was matched. Maybe there's that one scene in Gears of War 2 that kind of matches it emotionally, but there's 2 here that do a really good job of just like pulling at the heartstrings. But beyond that, I think Gears of War 2 really is where everything kind of just came together really well. I didn't feel it as much in Gears of War 3. So it might get controversial. It might not, depending on where you stand. But let's kind of go through this thing. So, as always, I like to give mention to like the game as a whole and what's in the game, even if I didn't do it. So, again, like you look back 2011, there's more than just the campaign, and that's primarily what we're going to talk about in this video. But you did have 4 modes in all, campaign being one of them. You also had versus, which I tried to do. I gotta be honest, I didn't even try the multiplayer for 3. I tried to get into the multiplayer of the first ones and didn't go well. I actually didn't manage to get into a match. I highly doubt I would have in 3 either, but it had multiplayer. From reading about it, from seeing it, and you got to remember this from Gears, right? And again, it's something that I want to give respect to it, even if we're not gonna be talking about my experience to it. The franchise maybe wasn't made with multiplayer. I think it was made with the style, the kind of charging, the camera shaking, and the reloading, and the more visceral feel to the actual gunfights. It's something very special in terms of the actual gameplay in all of the Gears of War, right? And that does reflect itself in the multiplayer, because you're doing it with other people, not with AI or even cooperative people. You're doing it with all human beings against human beings. And then you have horde mode, with the wave thing, and they very much upped that this time around. I remember saying in one of these videos, I remember that. I remember the wave based. I remember, you have the currency, you're building up, you face waves of enemies, then you face a boss every 10 rounds. The thing is, that actually is this game. This might be the game I was thinking about. I don't remember if it was Gears of War 2, because that's where this mode was introduced, or now Gears of War 3, where it was just improved upon. But this was something that I would go to friends' houses. It's not my first time playing Gears of War, I guess is my point, right? My first time doing the story of them, but not playing them. I would play horde mode, and that would kind of be it. Sometimes versus as well. I wasn't very good at it. My friends were a little bit better, but horde mode was where I thought they were doing some amazing work in terms of that wave-based thing. And now in this one, they actually add Beast, which is you can actually play as the other side of things. Reminds me very much of, I think Dead Space 2 also came out in 2011. I could be wrong there. Maybe it was 2010. But Dead Space 2 did the same thing. I don't know, just reading about what Beast mode actually was in this. Again, not having the chance to play it, but it's like, yeah, I would like to play as the enemy. And I don't know, it just reminds me of that era. And we talk about it quite often, right? There was that era from like 2008, 2009, maybe to like 2012, 2013. All of these games, even games that weren't like this, right? They would just inject the multiplayer mode, inject it into Assassin's Creed, inject it into Dead Space. And sometimes you would get some really cool, like it would work. It would actually work out. And Gears of War 3 is not exactly that situation. But again, want to give credit to those, because a key strength in all these games is the combat, is the gameplay that plays a big part in all 3 of those modes. Although I didn't try it out, it's a big part of it. As to the campaign, now this is actually the first one I played with somebody. So I actually played it with a lifelong friend of mine. We did it cooperatively. Now, this was the first one that you could actually do up to 4 players, right? Now, you could do 2 or you could do 4. And here's the thing, all right? It's, again, a little controversial. In a way, I had the most fun of any of these games, right? While the story can, go up, go down, and moments can go up, go down, I think I had the most fun because I was playing with another person. We also played it on whatever the version of hard is. So I actually, normally I'd play on like normal difficulty or medium in the past too. This one we actually ramped it up, and it was difficult. There would be some times where I think the game just puts you in very annoyingly stupid spots that would ruin you. And I think boss fights really suffered playing on the hard. Maybe it's because we suck, but I also think some of the boss fights in this game are very poorly designed. It's actually a big issue I have with the game we can go more into towards the end. But, there's some trade-offs, right? I had more fun because I'm playing with somebody. It was more challenging, and overwhelmingly that made the experience better, right? Because you're trying to watch things out. You can't just storm into action. There was that trade-off. That was the good part. The bad part, I feel like it kind of highlighted some of the weaker, if there was a weak moment in the gameplay or a weak boss or a weak map design, I feel like playing it on the harder difficulties highlights those weaknesses. So that's kind of the trade-off, and I think it overall maybe made it better, but at times it made it much, much worse. But I do want to throw it out there because as you'll see through the footage, through this video, it's not just me. And again, I think that overall made it a little bit more fun. So, okay, in terms of the strengths and the weaknesses, I think this game was a very like steady as she goes type game. And what I mean by that, see, Gears of War 2, I really feel like put it all together, where it had like I mentioned with the gameplay, right? The gameplay is very special, and the first game has it. Second game improves upon it and makes it, I think, just quicker. It made the levels cooler. Gears of War 2 had this sense of urgency and movement. Things were always either you would be moving on something or from one thing to the next. There's just this constant feeling of, okay, move on, and not in like a rush kind of way, but in a very organically good way where it felt kind of chaotic, and it worked. It worked really well. And I think Gears of War 2, I liken it to Uncharted 2. I felt it was just such a big jump in terms of just like how the environments interacted and again, like the level design changes and progressions. I thought they did such a good job. Gears of War 3 has it. Like, there are also on-rails moments. There's moments of that intensity and things going faster. I just felt like it was a little bit more casual, a little bit more, like, again, steady as she goes, where maybe it's because Gears of War 2 was so good that I was kind of expecting, for whatever reason, I was kind of expecting another big jump. And what I think I realized with Gears of War 3 is it's very, very close to Gears of War 2. There's not a lot of improvements, I think, at all. Maybe like the visuals are actually quite impressive. You think to 2011, I actually do think to Uncharted 3, but some of the, actually, Gears of War 3, Uncharted 3 might be two of the best looking games, from 2011. I'm sure there's a couple other ones in there, but, it's a beautiful game. And are there improvements here and there? Yes. Are there moments of interaction between characters that are a little bit better? Yes. Some better, some worse. I actually felt one element with this game that I don't think worked is, well, because they really focused on 4 players, right? And although I only played with 2, it was just me and my friend, the focus of the game was on 4, so you're always with a group of 4, and it always just felt like this weird rotation where, like Marcus's group would come in, and then like the B team. And I mean, look, some of these characters are pretty funny, they're a little charismatic, like they work well together. There's not a terrible character in here, but there definitely seems like there's a 1A and a 1B or a 1 and a 2 team. And the game, because you need 4 of them, has to constantly keep the characters. Does that make? Hopefully, I'm conveying that right. I felt the sense of, well, we need there to not only always be 2 people, right? Because they'll split you up. They'll say, hey, you go up or you go down, and they'll do 2 and 2. They did that before. In fact, there'd be 2 people, and they would say 1 goes left, 1 goes right. So they would split you up. That is common from Gears of War 1 all the way through. Now it's 4 people, and now it's 2 and 2. And I just felt that made something feel off, where you knew certain characters had to be safe. You knew when one team was coming and the other team was coming. You knew if there were 5 people, you'd have to put one basically on the bench, and, they'd be given a direction, hey, go back to base, go back here, basically because we only need 4 of us. Like, that's the whole point. You know what? That just stuck out to me as we went along. And I don't think that helped. It almost kind of pulled me out of the game. It's just like, okay, well, which group of 4, am I going to deal with now? Now, again, in terms of the actual what you're doing in it, there was nothing wrong with it. It was just as enjoyable. I think I've just gotten so used to it, right? Like the gunplay is just as rock solid. The AI, I feel like because it was on harder difficulties, I'm not as impressed with them as I used to be. In Gears of War 1, if you go back to that video, Gears of War 1 being so early, I felt the AI was spectacular. I can't believe how smart the AI was in the first game. I think it was the exact same in 2. For this, again, maybe because it was higher difficulty, the AI sometimes gets themselves into troubling predicaments. Sometimes they can't fully pick you up, or I found often if I were to go down, but then my friend went down, the AI would always pull off of me. Like say I literally went down, the AI would run to me, and then if he went down, the AI would stop, turn around and go get him. And then I might end up bleeding out and dying. They might have to come to get me after. There were just some weird, actual technical flaws that I noticed. Now, granted, would I have noticed it if it wasn't on hard difficulty? No, but I don't think that excuses it. Bottom line is, much like the combat, much like everything else, it felt very almost complacent. It felt like just a steady as she goes, like you're just going through the motions. Where, was it terrible? No. Was it probably what we've seen before? Yes, but it wasn't like a massive improvement. The level design wasn't a massive improvement. It still had great moments of, enemies invading, and had some top-down kind of stuff where an enemy would be breaking through doors, you'd be above them, you'd have to shoot them down. There were some really good moments. Again, I'm not here to say this game sucks. This game is very good. It's not as good as 2. It's been several months. Maybe I have to replay them actually a second time. No, I think this game might be better than 1 because of some of the story moments. 1, I just didn't really feel a sense of connection to the cast or to the actual larger story. However, to a degree, same thing here. Another pro and also a con. The game is held up, I think, by just a couple moments in the story. And we are going to get into spoilers, okay? In fact, we're probably going to do it right now. It's a 13-year-old game, so I feel like it's okay to talk about, and it's such a big part of it. So here we go. Dom's death is huge. Huge. And it kind of, I don't know if it's the midpoint or maybe slightly after the midpoint, but, up until that point, there's a little bit of intrigue because of Marcus's dad, right? And it's okay, and there's some background stuff going on, but overall, it really, again, kind of felt complacent, where it's we're just going to an area, killing things, to then go to another area and do the same thing. And that's fine. What you're doing, the actual, mission, the actual gameplay, totally good. That reminded me of Gears 1, because Gears 1 also had that same kinetic kind of thing where it's I don't really know what's happening. I'm being helicopter dropped to a location, we're killing enemies, going to another location and killing more. There's not a super great, maybe there is an actual, threading needle or threading story, but it's not amazing. Same thing here. There really isn't one throughout the entire game, I would say, in Gears of War 3. It's, again, I would say, boosted up by Dom's sacrifice, what it does to Marcus, what it does to the group, and then also, again, double spoilers, the ending. Now, the thing with the ending is it's literally the end, but, him losing his father, and that sense of loss, that sense of we're going through all of this stuff. He just lost Dom. He thought he lost his dad. He has a weird, not amazing relationship, but it kind of gets bridged and actually done really well, even through communication, just, throughout the game. And then, he actually gets to meet face-to-face, or he meets face-to-face a couple times. But once he thinks he can actually, hey, let's leave, right? We set off the device. We're going to win. The world is going to be, in a sense, cured from this stuff. But the dad, his dad dies in the process. So that is a huge moment. Dom is a huge moment. And Dom really, leaves that, weight on the cast and on the game throughout it. And in those moments, sometimes there'd be, slow-mo effects to it. They linger on it a lot, and I actually think they did a really, really good job. It felt very much like the one major, emotional moment in 2. They take their time. It's kind of slow. It's a little drawn out, and you feel it. And it actually almost feels weird. It just feels so against the norm because the game doesn't give you a lot of that at all. It gives you overall solid acting. I think Marcus is a good character. I think they're all acted well, but it doesn't give you those moments. So when it does, you're almost you're reaching for it, and you're oh, let me just hold on to this. And the cool thing with Gears 3 is it holds on to it for you. It tells you, okay, well, you're going to watch it, you're going to experience it, but the cast, I mean, this is going to leave a mark on all of them for quite a while, and even does at the end. They won. they won, and Marcus is sitting at a beach. It feels very much like Yakuza 3, to be honest with you, sitting at a beach, and, he has to get consoled and say, like, hey, like, it's okay. Like, what can we do in the future? Well, we have a future. Like, the world has a future. These people have a future, and they didn't before. And it's a cool, like, I like the ending. I feel like it's an ending that supplies a little bit of hope, but also a main character that kind of feels like they lost it all. And it's like, well, what's the point? What do we even gain by all of this stuff happening? I really, really like how they did it. And I think those two story beats were done really well, and probably done better than anything in story-wise, character-wise, in the first two games, right? I feel that. On the flip side, I mean, that's a huge positive, huge. On the negative side, it didn't really have that connecting needle that I wanted it to have. I expected more from the story, from the characters. They would also do some things where I felt like a lot of the like the casual chit-chatting, right, where they would insult somebody or make a joke or whatever. I felt like they did it kind of weird in this one, where either it would be so short that it wouldn't be impactful and they'd almost cut each other off, or it would be a cutscene where they would just make jokes against each other. And I remember telling my friend, like, what made the other games so special, I mean, one of the things, not the thing, right? But it's like I think they captured the dynamic a lot better. And so they have moments that last with the characters, and there's some interactions where Marcus has to tell people about people dying, right? And those moments are amazing. But there's actually smaller moments throughout these games, all three of them, that I think Gears of War 3 just didn't accomplish or didn't do all that well compared to the other ones. It seemed like the pacing, and maybe that was, it seems like, as I'm rationalizing, as I'm talking my way through it, Pacing is actually, I would say, maybe the biggest problem with this game. The story really struggled with pace. The characters kind of going in and out made it difficult to establish a pace with them. The gameplay, pretty much steady as she goes, but the boss fights would take me out of it, right? If we're going into that, again, the gameplay overall, super slick, super good, just like always. I don't know, I think there was the change that they added where you could actually convey to your AI, like, where to attack a little bit more. To be honest, we didn't use it one time. In fact, again, to be honest, I had no idea it was in the game. When I was reading, like, okay, well, what were, like, the features that were new to this game so we can address it in the video, I saw this and I was like, oh, dear God, we didn't take advantage of this plan or this strategy or whatever. We didn't do it one time. So that's my fault, so I have to, take responsibility for that. But, again, overall gameplay, very good. Some of the bosses, oh man, and the one I really specifically, I didn't record it, so it's not going to be conveyed as maybe well as I wanted to, but the end boss, the killer bee, right, the queen bee or whatever, I counted 10 rounds of that freaking boss, of shooting it, out of the sky, shooting in the mouth. It lands, you do the hammer at dawn, you do that, then it attacks the pillar, you shoot it off the pillar, and it does it all over again. So many times. Then the locusts come, and it's a never-ending barrage of attacks. You're getting attacked from the sky, from those flying things. You're getting attacked from the queen bee. You're getting attacked on the ground, and the enemies continue to respawn. They do not end. I tried, because we died like 5 times on it, I tried over and over and over to just kill all the locusts. But you know what? They keep coming. So again, is part of that difficulty? Yes. But we were even saying during it, this is just not a great design. It takes way too long to take that boss out. I actually liked it more when you're going up the the building a couple hours, maybe an hour or two before that, with the queen bee, when it's firing at you and you pretty much just climb up the stairs and then knock the thing down on it. I actually found that to be more enjoyable. That ending boss made me think of the game far worse than I did before it. I mean, to me, I hated it. I truly hated it. Was some of it skill? Was some of it difficulty? I'm sure some, but I just think very, very poor design. And there was another boss, I think I maybe recorded. It's the one that, like, charges you, and you're kind of in a very enclosed environment with it. Oh my God, we died, and it probably took us like 50 minutes because that boss just wouldn't freaking die. So there were a couple bosses that really broke the cadence and the pace of the entire game. And, I don't want to fully, entirely blame them, right? Because maybe some of it was our fault, but at the same time, I just thought some of the bosses lacked that punch, lacked the dynamic, whatever you want to say, like whatever buzzwords you want, these bosses did not have it. And I remember saying, throughout the game, like, I'm having fun, we're having fun, and we did. Like, it was as I said in the beginning, it's the most fun that we had, playing a Gears of War game because we were playing it together. But there's something just felt off about the game game plan. I kept referencing moments in Gears of War 2 where it was maybe a little bit more on rails, or again, the pacing was just a little bit more fast, and it wasn't here. So I don't know, something just felt off about Gears of War 3. I don't think that's reflected with opinions at the time. Like, you go back to 2011, you look at the Metacritic score. I don't know if it's the highest rated, but I think this game got like 90, 91, 92, like low 90s. Very good game. People were calling it the best of the trilogy. People were calling it an amazing finish of the trilogy. And look, ultimately, does it, actually satisfy some of the story and lore kind of elements that the trilogy was building up? Yeah, it does. Like, there's important backstory and there's important lore things, and they do a pretty good job. So, and as a whole, it's a great trilogy. It's a great trilogy. Again, like, for me, growing up and, getting the PS3 in 2009, and then, so I came into Uncharted late, but Uncharted was my PS3 trilogy that started me with, I played Infamous and Resistance and stuff, but some of those games didn't even make it to a trilogy or didn't make it till later. Uncharted was the one. It's actually insane how many similarities. Now, I think Uncharted 3 is the best of their trilogy, but for Gears, I think it peaked at 2 and then kind of stayed a little consistent, maybe dropped a little bit with 3. So, it maybe went in slightly different directions, but it's actually insane to me. Around the same time, like Uncharted 3 comes out 2 months after Gears of War 3 that year, right? Gears in September and then Uncharted in November. It's incredible that, like, both of these, console warrior type, mentality things, both these consoles just had an amazing franchise that was built up basically on them. And I mean, Xbox was coming off of Halo and finishing up Halo to then restart again a few years later. So Xbox, in a way, was absolutely cooking, back in the late 2000s. But no, I'm very glad I was able to play this trilogy. Again, 2 is my personal favorite, 3 not my personal favorite, but I'm excited because I definitely know, or I've heard about, how the franchise kind of goes down from here. At least some people say that. So I'm really excited to play Judgment. That will be next up in a few months from now or whatever, but I'm excited to continue to go forward. And when I'm recording this, when this video goes up, we might, honestly, this upcoming Sunday, we might get a Gears of War 6 announcement, which would be pretty sweet, but also potentially like a Gears of War 1 through 3 thing, like a Master Chief Collection. We might get it for Gears. So this might be very timely if on Sunday we get like big Gears of War announcements. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.